give you a chance to respond, but we've had someone join the chat. Who is Brightside here?
Oh, hello. I heard there was an Oompa Loompa meeting going on, so I wanted to join in.
Oh, wonderful. We've got Metokur.
This is the
here,
under 4 feet tall club, right? Did I jump into the right stream?
I think you're here. Did you wear the costume?
Yes, I did.
You show up
I did.
Perfect.
I dressed as a leprechaun,
Perfect.
so I think I should fit in.
Excellent. What do you have to contribute to this wonderful stream so far, Metokur, since you've decided to join us?
I've just been enjoying listening to everybody yell at each other. That's been fantastic. Who doesn't like that? A nice heated debate going on is always entertaining.
All right, perfect. Stephen, did you want to continue?
Yeah, so I guess like in terms of American values or American society, I thought that, or at least for my goal personally, for my personal philosophies, you always want to enable people to make the most choices that they can to maximize their own personal happiness. So things like access to contraceptives or things like giving women the right to choose for an abortion, these are positive things. If you want to argue against it, I mean, you can, but that seems to be, like earlier, I think you made fun of Nick because you said that he was authoritarian and you were libertarian, but now you're talking about how the state needs to cut off access to things like abortion because we're enabling women to make bad choices or something.
Well, I think abortion is its own thing because I think, you know, someone's freedom to abortion is not trumped by the right of a fetus to, you know, not die. But when we're talking about things like the welfare state, which I also mentioned, the welfare state is basically the antithesis of small government.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but we're not talking about the welfare state. We're talking about like the promiscuity of women. It's like that was an issue that needed to be addressed by government.
Well, it's both. So the welfare state and abortion, those things in tandem have, I think, very much destroyed the prevalence of the nuclear family, especially when we're talking about low income communities. And if we're looking at that now, like, you know, 40 years ago or 50 years ago, the African American instance of, you know, marriage was comparable to white families. If we look at that now, it's totally been destroyed, and we can't ignore the policy implications that have come from things like, you know, enlarging the the welfare state. And you know, when we're talking about, I've, by the way, never said we should limit access to contraception. That's something you threw in there. Just want to mention that's something I've never said. But we can't ignore that when we subsidize something, we make it easier to do, and that's very much the fact with single mothers right now.
Okay, guys.
Kids, more welfare checks.
I mean, okay.
This is getting a little, this is stagnating in one spot. We're just screaming at each other about single motherhood. Not that it's not a fascinating topic and a massive problem in the West right now, but I do want to see if anyone wants to move on to any other topics so that we can keep this entertaining, keep this fun, and move on to other people. Nick, Theron, Metokur, anything you want to talk about? No bullshit?
Not in particular. No, I'm good.
I mean, if we're opening it up to just different topics of conversation, Destiny, what brand of stilts do you use? Because I've been
that was a nice one, dude.
Curious
I love it
about
when
that
people literally use a cartoon avatar, build their entire personality around a That's actually really funny.
Get off your high horse.
That's really good. You got any more there in your little book there? I know how long you
little book.
You're real excited here to keep going, my dude.
Little book.
What cartoon picture did you use to represent yourself for this conversation, buddy?
3 homosexual men. You should
appreciate
it.
That's pretty funny, dude.
You should appreciate it. 3 gay
men. You're a riot, my man.
I know you love it. That's why I'm here to bring the banter, Destiny.
This has just spiraled into productivity, guys.
Well, people in the chat, and I've talked a lot, so I don't need to start on this, but people are in the chat are asking about the whole "it's okay to be white" thing. So I don't know if like Theron, Destiny, any of you guys have any, like, maybe we could talk about that.
Sure, perfect. All right.
I don't know. Is anybody in this call selling fucking T-shirts about this? Because it's kind of gay. I got to be honest. Because I've heard some people are trying to make some money off of that, and it's a little bit dumb in my opinion.
Right. I'm actually going to be hoping to go out and put some of the posters out soon. I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to put out and to support. It's simple. Pisses people off for all the right reasons. T-shirts a little silly, manufacturing at mass. But Stephen, do you find "it's okay to be white" particularly offensive?
I mean, it's pretty obvious what the goal is. I guess if your goal is to just piss people off. I mean, it kind of reminds me of the All Lives Matter movement.
Well, no, it's to expose a clear hypocrisy.
Well, no, it doesn't really expose any hypocrisy.
You had a campus come out and say this message does not represent our university, a message that says it's okay to be white.
You really just read it. You read the line, Lauren, and that's it. You just take it at face value like that.
What? What are you talking about, Destiny?
It's obvious what's going on in the country with an anti-white bias, a clear
anti-white. Oh God, it's so hard to be a white man today in America. Oh God.
Steve, well, actually, it's easy because being white, we are pretty strong. We've been through a lot, so it's not difficult. But there is an anti-white bias. Look, affirmative action policies.
Oh man, affirmative action. Holy shit! All that generational wealth handed down by whites over and over again. And
I didn't receive any generational wealth. Hey, Destiny, I didn't receive any generational wealth.
Man.
I didn't receive
I'm glad that your
anything.
personal story is representative of the average white man in the United States. Once again, you display such a cunning understanding of statistics and data. Keep it up.
The point is, the only institutional discrimination in the country today is against white people. And you, I'm sure maybe you're some kind of Black Lives Matter cuck, but many people have it in their minds that black people are discriminated against, that there's this institutional racism against non-whites. But in fact, the only institutional on-the-books policies that discriminate in practice in written code against white people are those affirmative action policies. And you ask if those hurt people. You ask if that makes a difference. Of course it does. You know, that you tell somebody who's white, they don't get to go to college because of the color of their skin. They don't get a job because of the color of their skin.
In places where that was challenged, like at the University of Texas, they still took the top 10% of applicants, and the Supreme Court struck that down as not necessarily being a racist policy.
You're using your personal story to disprove
my personal story. I'm not a UTEX student. I'm sorry. I'm citing Supreme Court. And if you want to talk about actual discrimination,
Destiny,
some more Supreme Court law, like the voter ID laws in North Carolina.
We all know there's an answer.
Voter ID laws do not discriminate by their written laws against any race.
But they do. Please stop. Oh God.
Affirmative action policies are explicitly racist, and not just against whites, but also against Asians. So
I mean, like,
they're
totally to the Supreme Court, dude. I don't want to argue their case against you. I mean, like in North Carolina, it was very, very clearly targeted towards black people. The state legislature requested data by racial breakdown in order to disallow the very specific dates that black people voted and the very specific types of ID that black people used to vote, and to close very specific black majority voting booths. Right? I know that for people like you, for the enlightened centrists, if it's not there in the letter of the law, you don't think that it's racist. But for the rest of us that have to deal with the pragmatic implementation of policy in the real world, these things end up being pretty fucking racist.
Destiny, this little guy, you must hate.
All right, wait.
You're always making excuses. You're always making excuses. I like to say, let's hold everybody to the same standard. Let's have the same expectations of everybody. I think the people, not to go Dems are the real racists, but you know what, Destiny? You don't care about black people. In fact, I think you think less of black people because you read into their experience all these excuses. Oh, well, it was voter ID laws. Oh, well, it's explicitly anti-black. No. The truth of the matter is how much money has been dedicated to these programs for inner cities, for black youth, for blacks in STEM, for blacks in college, diversity quotas, and nothing's changed. So it's time to say, you know what? We are in the post-racial America. I grew up in a country where there was no institutional discrimination. It's time to say, look, everybody's got to play ball. Everybody's got to play by the same rules.
How do you explain studies where they take similar applications and they switch out a white name with a black name and the guy has a 50% chance less of getting a call back? How do you explain something like that?
I can explain that easily because blacks and whites, there are differences in the representation and the statistics. For example, if you look at the crime statistics for 2016, you look at just about I think it's all measures of crime, and black people commit by far and away more crime than white people. And by the way, the proportions are virtually the same, whether it's rape, murder, whatever you want to divided by. And so people are using economy of information.
Why did you pivot?
Why did I pivot?
Why is it fair that if a black guy has the exact same application as a white person and his name is switched with a white person, he'll have twice the chance of getting hired?
And by the way, where does this happen?
What? It's one of the most popular studies on institutional racism in the United States.
What study?
Hold on.
Actually,
no, it doesn't exist, Bob.
Actually, regarding that study, I have heard of it as well. But I think
everyone has heard of it. It's one of the most.
Destiny, I'm throwing you a bone. Just hold on a sec, okay? Right. But I think what's interesting regarding that study, if you look at what are the traditionally black names that they've chosen, they're actually, they're things like, Shaniqua, things like that. Black people can have names like Darren, like Wilson, things like that.
So if the black person has the wrong name, it's okay to discriminate against them?
I'm making a point, Destiny. How do you think a white person with a name like, I don't know, Billy Bob Thornton would do? Like, how do you think a white person with a name like, I don't know, Mary Sue, or like, I don't know, hillbilly redneck names? I think, I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist within individual hiring practices, but I also think there's an element of classism here that perhaps people are ignoring, right? And it's not just like, oh, black versus white. It's also like, I mean, it's also a class thing. You can tell a lot with a name.
How can you take white names, replace them with black names, and somehow extrapolate from that? It must be class.
What is a white name versus a black name? Give me a black name, Destiny.
Like Tyrone or Jamal?
Whoa, hey,
Whoa.
what are you, a white supremacist?
Is Steven not a black
Nazi?
name? Destiny?
Not generally. Are we going to sit here and
All
pretend?
right.
I love the dishonesty. We're going to sit here and pretend that white people
are
don't have
generally not
certain names generally, and black people don't tend to have certain. How many white women do you know that are named Shaniqua or
Wow,
Letitia?
Steven, I believe in equality, okay? There's no differences between
Yeah, but you
people.
also believe that somebody that goes to Washington High School is going to have the
No.
same opportunities in life as somebody that goes to like St. Louis, the Pope fucking the 23rd.
I'm hearing a lot of problematic rhetoric coming out of you that
I
there's
love the
black
meme.
and
Whew,
white
when we
names.
back
No, it's
into a corner that we can't respond.
Steven.
We better pull out our memes, boys.
problematic.
Does anyone else here like Lake Hekistan?
I don't believe there is any such thing
Anyone else
as a
here
black
like
name.
Pee-Pee the
All
Frog?
right, I want to jump in here for 2 seconds.
Anyone
Anyone
else
else
in
here
here
know-
is a black name? Steven,
Anybody
I
else
thought
need
you
to-
were black. I
Anyone
thought you
else
were
need that
black.
booster
Come
seat
on, guys.
here
We
to
all
stay even
know
in this
that black guys
conversation?
aren't called Steven. Like, I mean, Destiny's right. We
Alright.
can't
I
expect
hear
everyone
a lot
to
of
call
racism.
Steven.
No black people have the name Steven? I remember when Destiny said that.
All right. Sorry, I've let this go to shit. I hope you're enjoying this on your Sunday evening,
I'm
anyways,
fucking
guys. I do, I do want to mention though. I have a question about the name thing because this does happen in a lot of cases. What about in higher learning? You had that gentleman, and this is a story that many of us know about, easily Googleable, where he kept repeatedly entering his poetry to be accepted, to be published, to be published, to published. And he could not get it published until he changed his name to an Asian name, because then he was suddenly within a criteria of like diversity hiring. So within the arts, within other fields, you certainly see this as well. And this is just a natural thing that exists in the world. It is certainly being pushed by leftist agendas who want to get rid of whites. And right now our culture is currently pushing against any sort of agenda to hire against or being prejudiced towards minorities. That is not a popular trend in the culture at all. It's pushing the opposite way to be prejudiced towards whites, even if that is still happening to an extent.
So, once again, your evidence for this is a single data point. Why?
You
No,
just
man, no.
cited
It's-
one single study.
I cited
about-
one of the most comprehensive studies from the National Bureau of Economics Research called Are Emily and Greg More Employable Than Lakeisha and Jamal? The study is kind of old, but it has been one of the most comprehensive studies. They did thousands of applications on this to see
Kind of
whether or
old.
not a what?
Okay, well then,
How old is
Stephen,
it?
let me cite the law. There's diversity hiring in Canada for all government jobs. If I'm a woman or someone who is black or Asian or whatever, I am more likely to get a job in the military or police force or in education. That is the freaking law. So beyond just social prejudices, we have it as a legal prejudice against whites.
True. And
No,
also
nothing?
in the yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah, that's, if you got an answer to that.
Well, I don't. I mean, the goal behind affirmative action policies is that usually they try to open up positions or they try to find ways to help groups that have been disproportionately impacted by past law. And generally, white people don't seem to be hurt by this very much. That's why we're not having a discussion right now about how all of the white communities are being destroyed and all of white is the whitehood or whatever white people are being thrown into poverty as a result of these horrible, atrocious affirmative action programs. Like you can cite me all the one-off things you want, or like, well, the law says this thing, but you can't find me these communities of white people that are being destroyed by criminal justice systems or are being destroyed by failing education systems or fucked up cities. Like you just can't find it.
I love how you say that it's the criminal justice system. Like black people commit crime, black people go to jail. It's the criminal justice system. No, maybe there's a culture of responsibility. And
I mean, like, if you look at
families.
reported rates for marijuana use, there are plenty of age groups. I think in every age group, except for like 2 or 3, like 5-year chunks, white people report higher use of marijuana than black people do. But black people are like twice as likely to be locked up.
Yeah,
for
that's
it.
because there's more violent crime. That's because there's more violent crime in black neighborhoods. You
Okay,
want to
so
know
the
why
way
they
that
get
you-
locked up for because the police have to be there. I don't know if you've ever been to Chicago, Stephen, but there's a lot of marijuana usage where I am in the suburbs. Not a lot of gang killings, not a lot of rape. You go a little bit east, and there's a lot of that stuff. It makes sense why the police goes over there. You can all day long. You want to pretend that at once there's no differences between people. We're all equal. They're so poor. They whatever, blah blah blah. But at the same time, There's black names. At the same time, you can't have it all.
No,
ways.
I don't want to have it always. You always try to present this as the most hyperbolic thing possible. Believe it or not, it is simultaneously possible to recognize that there are problems in the black community, some of them maybe even belonging to black people and black cultures themselves, while also recognizing that black people have disproportionately faced really fucked up things in their history in America that other white people haven't. You can simultaneously recognize both of these positions and be just fine.
What are some, Steve? And I'm just curious, what would you say are some black cultural problems? Name some for me.
Yeah, concede.
Well, I mean, black people's relationship to the police is pretty fucking dire at the moment, I would say, right?
Maybe they should stop doing crimes.
In what context? Coming from the police to black people, or from black people to the police?
What?
I said in what context? We were talking like black cultural problems. I just want to hear you name a few. Do you mean their relationship with the police as in the police are treating them badly, or black people are responding badly to the police?
I would say it's probably a combination of both. But a lot of this roots from the problems of police legitimately fucking up black people and earlier in the 50s and 60s and shit, right? A lot of culture is reactionary to other problems.
That's just goofy, man. Nobody who was born, nobody's 20 years old today knows police brutality from the 1950s. You can't keep
but they're literal parents.
Historical racism. That doesn't excuse. And by the way, it's not like it's just like communities here that haven't been working. Certain people have been failing for thousands of years, and to write that off is like, oh well, it's just because they haven't been given enough money or programs. I think is a little bit ridiculous. It's kind of coincidental.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But paying them all $1,000 to ship them back to Africa, that's a very realistic problem.
I don't know who's talking about that.
Okay.
Who's talking about shipping them back to Africa?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, no, Steve, who raised that point? I didn't hear that once during this stream.
Yeah, right.
Isn't that part of the big meme for you building your white ethno state? Is you have to ship some
no wacky Steve.
Wait, so how do you deal with it right now? How do you deal with all the all those evil brown?
What are you talking about? Dealing with the? What are you talking about, wacky Steve?
You want a white super? I'm sorry, I thought you mentioned a white supermajority of the United States earlier. Did you not?
Yeah, by raising birth rates, by having families again, by
so
having
how do you keep
Hispanic
and black people from having kids and make white people have more kids?
Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking
I want you to talk
Steven.
about it. How do you do it? How do you?
We're not trying to stop people from having babies. We want the majority in the country to start having kids again, and it's because their birth rate is so low that their population hasn't been maintained. Do you think? By the way, Stephen, do you think it's been like an accident that the population of whites in the country went from 90% to 67% in 50 years? You think that was an accident?
It was.
And for us to want to move in the opposite direction, we're villains for that? You're the ones that want to push this artificial transformation, unnatural transformation of our country,
it's
and
very
we have
natural.
to justify ending that.
It's insanely natural. It's just immigration. You're the one that's
people?
talking about
There is
arbitrarily
nothing
restricting
natural.
certain people to coming to the country. You're the definition of arbitrary.
It's hardly arbitrary to say the people from broken non-states, from failed states shouldn't come into our country. Hey, Syria, you can't come in here. You call that arbitrary when 20% of their people support ISIS? I don't think so.
I mean, Syria is a refugee case. Do you want to talk about refugees or immigrants, or do you just mix all these groups together?
Okay, let's take Mexico, for example, where south of certain districts, it's lawless. You have no government. The cartels run the country. So, yeah, I mean, you could take Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Africa, the Middle East. Pick one.
What legislation or policies are Mexicans pushing in the United States that are causing it to turn into Mexico?
All right, just give 1965
the 1965 Immigration Act.
What is 1965? No, I want to know what policies Mexicans
the provisions
that are turning us into Mexico.
It's not Mexicans doing it. It's a certain group of rootless transnational elites. The Hart-Celler Act, which pushed certain provisions, it eliminated the national origins quota. It said that it allowed chain migration so that people that are families of immigrants can come here. That was deliberate. And again, you put the burden of proof on us to end your program to transform our country.
Wait, this wasn't your program. This wasn't our program.
All right, guys, the white men have taken over the chat. This is absolutely disgusting. It is bigoted. I've had enough of white men running this stream. So we are going to bring in some minority voices for about 2 seconds here. Theron, did you want to jump in and comment on any of the autistic screeching you've heard for the last 30 minutes?
Well, every time I have a moment to jump in to comment on a topic, we've already moved on to another topic. I still have some thoughts on the "it's okay to be white" thing. So that was
a while ago.
I know.
That's long past.
I know.
Missed that train.
You guys are so heated, and I guess I'm not assertive enough to just jump in and say, "Everyone, shut up." But Is it worth going back on that? Otherwise, we can just carry on, and I'll just comment on something if I have a thought on any new topic.
No, please bring up a new point. Bring up something new. Yeah.
Oh, something completely new?
Whatever you want. Everyone,
Okay,
this is a diverse stream. Everyone is allowed to bring in new opinions. Everyone's allowed to talk.
No, I wanted to comment on the "it's okay to be white" thing because it dovetails into a larger point that I have. So that was put up on university campuses, right?
Yes, all over the place.
Okay, well, the thing is that we all know that anti-white sentiments are prevailing on campus. I mean, that is just obvious. So I think that makes a lot of sense to put stuff like that, like "it's okay to be white" signs up on university campuses. And I think the thing with the mainstream media and leftists is that they just immediately interpret as the worst possible interpretation of, oh, this is Nazi propaganda. And that doesn't mean that there couldn't be subtext ever. Certainly there could be some subtext, but I still think it's still important to employ the principle of charity and to interpret statements, to use the best plausible interpretation of a statement or argument when conversing with someone else. And that's a problem on both sides. I think there's a problem with the right and a problem with the left when dealing with each other, is that they don't employ the principle of charity towards one another.
Right, so like Nick and Steven, everything is translated in the worst possible translation of the way.
Yeah.
Spaghetti, that's my second language. I'm just
for example, when Steven said black names, obviously he didn't mean names that are inherently black. Obviously, he meant names that are predominantly associated or are mostly assigned to people who are black. That is the most reasonable, the best, strongest plausible interpretation. So that's not fair, right? That is not charitable. And then I'm sure Steve said a bunch of things towards Nick that was not really very charitable towards Nick, though I can't think of one right now.
Well, this is the nature of debate these days. It's funny, it's entertaining, and it is helpful to debate. And when the opponent in a debate is not charitable with you, why be charitable with them is what it ultimately comes down to. It's not necessarily the most radical, centrist, most reasonable way of approaching things, but it is the world we live in, and it is the state of debate that we are in now. It's gotten to extremes where, of course, you have, for example, the Antifa holding up that "we support pedos, no pedo bashing" thing, where they literally dropped that immediately after, according to some articles, and interpreting that the wrong way has really destroyed any sort of argument or actually attacking their actual points. But I mean, with the current way that the left is treating the right, it is just as devolved. How do we fix this, guys? Let's end this stream on a nice point. Where is some common ground that you lads can find? Let's go to Steven and Nick, since you guys have been at each other's throats. Any common ground you can find?
People like Steven need to be thrown in jail, okay? These subversives. Well, no, if we could stop
being Jewish, dude. Why would you say that? Fuck.
The problem. Why are you reading into it? You hear like people ruling the country, and then you think Jew. Are you anti-Semitic?
Transnational. I know, dude. I watched all the Mountain Buddha videos. I know who those transnationalist elites are. I got my eyes on them.
Well, you are an anti-Semite, okay? But here's where we can find some.
I'm just a realist, dude.
Here's where we can find some common ground. People like Steven have to be held responsible for the fact that they are pushing policies that are transformative, and the natural order continues to be perverted. And I think if we could argue from that axiom where Steven has to justify millions of people coming here, instead of me having to justify why we don't take millions of people, I think that's a productive way to change the conversation, because it happens to be the reality of the situation.
Can I just jump in?
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I need to take issue. Yeah. I need to take issue with Nick's constant use of the term natural order, because I think it's a complete misnomer. I think it's maybe in your mind religious order or traditional order or cultural order. It's not natural order. I don't think you understand nature and biodiversity if you want to equate natural order with whatever you're talking about, because nature is actually allows for a lot of variation, and of course there are trends. Of course women are on average predisposed to want to have children, but that doesn't mean that nature doesn't allow for some women who are predisposed to probably hate to have children and would probably be better off not having children. This whole idea that there is this this order ordained by nature, in your case God, onto humans is just fallacious. The reality of the situation is that nature is constantly in flux, that the environment is constantly in flux, and that we're constantly adapting. So the natural order is constantly changing. It's just religious order. Please stop equating your understanding of what humans should be with nature.
Well, you're one to lecture on naturalism, but the natural order of things, we all understand what that means. And up until very recently, we all understood what that means. Until
what are you talking about? You're someone to talk.
Yeah, well, because you are living an alternative lifestyle. You are living a lifestyle. You are making choices that are unnatural. And that's not me saying that. That's not. That is God saying that.
Please, no. No, please, absolutely, that's complete bullshit.
Okay.
The idea that nature doesn't allow for variation.
Where do you see gender reassignment surgeries in the animal kingdom? Where do you see like little kangaroos operating on each other?
Can we not make this about me?
Well,
like,
I mean,
you're someone to talk about this.
Hey, you brought yourself
that's an ad hominem.
That's
an ad hominem.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was talking about your ideas. I was talking about your ideas, and then you made it about my gender.
Well, we know why you take issue with this natural order.
No, I'm not talking about the whole trans thing. I'm relating this to like women wanting to or not wanting to have kids.
Well, and then in that case, but the
that's that is just perfect example of an ad hominem.
Fair enough. But then with regard to women, the exception proves the rule. Of course, you can have women that are working. Of course, you have anomalies. Catherine the Great, Joan of Arc, Elizabeth, Victoria. We can have exceptions, but the exceptions prove the rule. I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, you wouldn't say, for example, that because you have an apple.
Yes, well, that's why I'm saying.
By some freak example, an apple is blue. You wouldn't say that apples come in red, green, and blue.
That natural order allows for variation. You just proved my point. You have an idea in your mind of religious order. You have an idea in your mind of cultural order.
Well, I mean, I don't see eye to eye with Nick on everything, but I don't think it's necessarily him inserting religion into this to say that the natural order is for people to be forming pair bonds and having children. Even if we accept that individuals may not want to do that, it is undisputably the natural order for people to have children and raise them.
You guys are talking about two different things. You're talking about the natural order as exists as a scientific fact. Nick is asserting that it is a philosophical ought. These are two gaps that people generally...
Both.
No, it's not both. It's not both.
Sure,
unless you're Sam Harris, it's not both. You cannot bridge the fact that some things exist in the world of science and they all of a sudden become biological imperatives. We spend plenty of time in our daily lives. We are talking to each other on video screens using computers to communicate with one another. Okay, we do a lot of things that can't be directly tied to our biological imperatives.
That's ridiculous,
right? But that doesn't. If
you don't believe, do you hunt for your food, Nick? Have you gone out hunting recently?
Of course, it's different to say that we use technology.
So you do not believe in your.
No. But in principle, well, and we can talk about Ted Kaczynski and if we should even be doing all of this. But besides the point, we're using tools. But the fundamental reality, the principles that govern human behavior do not change. Well, this is a tool. The market process, the civilization can be considered a sociological tool, of course. I mean, that's a fallacious argument that I don't think anybody thinks is relevant to the conversation. You know, to equate anarcho-primitivism to using your biological limitations to govern your decision-making. You don't think anybody equates those two except for you.
Nobody in society that talks about morals.
All right, you two are going to take over the stream again, so I'm going to give Theron a chance to respond and then Roaming a chance to respond.
Here's the difference. Someone who is a woman who is naturally predisposed not to want to have children and probably not be a good mother and probably someone who shouldn't have children. She's not someone who goes against the natural order. She is someone who is part of the natural order as a variation on that order. There's a difference between being an exception to the rule and going against the rule, and this idea of intentionality, and that's where natural order, that's where this religious thinking comes in and where the moralistic argumentation comes in. That is exactly what Nick is talking about. He's using nature to explain his religiosity, and I don't agree with that. Even if I consider myself a traditionalist in many ways, and I think that our society should be a lot more traditional in many ways, I'm not going to use natural order to explain my point of view, because
no
it's
one
just
does.
Okay, here we go. I think I can identify the problem, and the problem here seems to be semantics. It seems to be that, of course, Theron, you are right. Variations are part of the natural order, technically speaking. However, when we're speaking on just a general term of naturally, this is typically what happens. Generally speaking, I understand what Nick's point is, and generally speaking, I understand what Roaming Millennial's point is. But technically speaking, you are correct. This is an argument over semantics. This is an argument over semantics, though.
It's not just the technicality, because there's a very, very, very important difference in meaning when you say someone is an exception to the natural order and someone is going against the natural order or the ordained word of God. There's a difference between just existing as a woman who just is naturally predisposed not to want to have children, and a woman who is, sinning against the word of God because she doesn't want to have children.
Well, I mean, I don't think Nick has said that in this stream, that people are sinning against the word of God if they don't.
Well, I'm talking about intentionality here. I'm talking about intention.
Right, but I think when we think about,
you can't ascribe intention onto nature. You can't describe your morality onto nature.
This isn't necessarily a moral.
Natural selection does not have intention. Natural selection does not have intention.
Well, the intention, we're talking about reproduction, and the intention of reproduction is to have children.
But that's not how we use it in society today. Everybody uses contraception.
But we are talking specifically about families, or at least that's what my impression was when we're talking about women having families and having children. Maybe I've lost sight of the conversation, though. Totally possible.
Yeah, I think I might be a little lost.
So what Theron is, the difference between what these two are arguing, I think, okay, if I can try to understand Nick's point of view, is Nick says that there is a certain order to the natural world, that this order is something that can be factually and scientifically observed, and that we should do our best to preserve that order in society. That's essentially Nick's argument, right? Is that a fair summary of your point?
It is natural, societal, and cosmic, the order I'm talking about. So, you say that it's philosophical and it's also biological. It's all part of a coherent system.
But that's just bullshit, because the natural order can change. In a thousand years, of course.
The problem is that Nick is
taking the environment is constantly changing, and we are constantly adapting to a constantly changing environment. So in a million years' time, what is the natural order then is the cosmic order then is completely different from what it is now. This idea that it's this platonic ideal and eternally stable thing is completely religious.
Of course it's eternal. Of course, and it's been true.
No, it's not. It's not completely eternal.
Are you gonna let me finish, babe? Okay, look, of course it's eternal. Men and women are not in flux biologically. Like maybe in a million years, and we'll have to ask our future selves in a million years if the biology has changed. But as it stands, men and women still have different brain chemistry. As it stands, men and women still have different biology, and biology.
Of course they do, and I agree with you.
Stephen believes in comparative advantage only insofar as it extends to the marketplace. He doesn't believe in comparative advantage when it comes to the fact that women are more suited to rearing and raising children, and men more suited to hunting, building things.
I totally believe that.
Soldiers.
I think that if we had a 100% equal society where there was no pressure on any sides whatsoever, I think that you would see women gravitate towards some jobs more than men. I totally 100% believe.
No, they would gravitate towards the home. That would be the job they gravitate.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, because in your world, no woman ever wants to work any job ever. Okay, but
no, that's not.
In the marketplace, if women could still work in the world where they're allowed to choose jobs, that women would probably gravitate towards some things more than others. The problem is that what Nick is trying to do is Nick is taking his observation of the natural order and he's trying to extrapolate a system of morals from that. But in society, we generally don't do this. If we have a person who is like, say we have somebody that's disabled, right? Somebody in a wheelchair. We don't typically say, well, naturally speaking, this is a person that needs to die. We shouldn't be providing medical resources for them. We shouldn't be providing food for them because naturally speaking, somebody that
wouldn't be saying that person is going against the natural
order,
right?
Right, but I mean, to address that, we also, to be fair, wouldn't say that person is completely normal. It's very clear that they have a disability. And if I can bring this back to, the whole debate about women and having children, it is totally fine if an individual woman doesn't want to have children and wants to focus on a career or whatever. She just doesn't want children for whatever reason.
I guess
that doesn't mean that.
Sorry, can you acknowledge the difference?
I guess my point is that I feel like variation and the acknowledgement of human variation is slowly getting lost in this natural order conversation, because you have to acknowledge that natural variation and biodiversity is part of the conversation.
Human biodiversity, of course, but you talk about men and women, and you talk about Aristotle's 4 causes. Let's talk about Aristotle's 4 causes. The last of Aristotle's 4 causes is the final cause, which means that all things that are created, all things that exist, have a final end. They are directed towards a particular end, and human beings are directed towards a particular end. Why do we have reproductive appendages? Hint, it's in the name. It's not for recreation. It's not so you could do degenerate, cosmopolitan magazine sex positions. It's so that you can continue the species. It's so that you can, after you get married, have lots of children, and then they take care of you. And
marriage? Do you think monogamy is part of the natural order? Monogamy is part of the natural order?
Of course it is. Maybe not in certain barbarous
other women then after they're married.
That has nothing to do with it. A societal.
What do you mean? That's a perfectly natural biological function.
Well, here, if it was biological, women would have multiple orifices for multiple partners, but that's just not a part of it. Why would it be? Why would every society?
Wait, no, hold on. I'm curious because biologically speaking, a man and a woman can be married, and that man can still feel intense sexual attraction for other people. So why would that be unnatural to you? Shouldn't men naturally be polyamorous?
No, because again, it's a difference between men having certain sexual chemistry, and the reason for that is because there are, women are the selectors in terms of who carries on the genes. Women have to choose who carries on.
I don't think Nick is making an entirely natural argument. I think
absolutely was.
In the process of making my argument.
He's making it now. He's telling you he's making it now.
Look, but the thing,
ladies, men, everyone. Let's I need to wrap this stream up soon, as fun as this has been. I found this absolutely entertaining for my Sunday night, but I will take some final statements, some final points from everyone. I apologize for cutting you off right there. I think there were about somehow 20 people talking at once, despite there only being 6 people in here. So does anyone want to make any final statements, final points to wrap up this hilarity?
Yeah, I'd love to, if I can have a minute.
Excellent. Go ahead.
I just wanted
We're a little short on time, so keep it fast.
I will. I just wanted to ask the little guy, are you still suing girls on the internet?
Ooh, I actually am not able to talk about that publicly at the moment. I'm sorry. But
you're suing somebody for hurt feelings, really?
Under advice of counsel, I'm not supposed to talk about that right now. I'm sorry.
You can't legally speak about you suing.
I shouldn't. I really shouldn't. I'm sorry.
Oh, that is sad. That is fucking sad. The other thing I wanted to ask you too, that that I've got a short minute here. Are you ever going to pay that charity money you owe, or are you going to just be a snake oil salesman?
Well, somebody said that I called people racial slurs in StarCraft 2, and that's
not what I'm talking about. Not what I'm talking about.
Wait, what other thing was talked about?
You wanted somebody to quote you, and you said, "If you can find me saying this, I'll pay $1,000 to you."
Yeah, I think it was calling somebody like the N-word in StarCraft or whatever.
The guy found the quote, not the StarCraft thing.
You can quote me the tweet later and tell me what it's about, because I don't remember this.
Okay, because he found the quote and he gave it to you. And he asked you to donate that money to a British charity for midgets.
Oh,
so
shit.
You owe that fucking money to them.
Well,
you've been dodging it for 3 months.
I guess I just have a short attention span.
I guess you do, man.
You better go ahead and shoot me that tweet again, and I'll look into it, buddy. Okay?
You need to pay what you owe.
Yeah, you're right.
I actually think
if you have money to hire lawyers to sue girls on the internet, you should have the money to pay your debt.
I never said I was doing any of that. Oof.
You said under advice of counsel, you can't talk about it. No, this wasn't the N-word.
I can't really say.
I'm not talking about that.
I'm really sorry. I wish I could speak to you more about this.
I'm not talking about the thing where he went off on some black chick and called her an Uncle Tom.
I remember that.
Yeah,
that was funny stuff. Yeah.
Good old Patty.
Destiny. Yeah. Was that the same one that you tweeted out the KKK crucifix burning picture to?
No, that was actually to a black nationalist. But yeah, that was a pretty good tweet too. I like that one.
That's good stuff.
I liked it. You're the Gamergate guy, right? I thought you said we shouldn't be offended by this kind of stuff. Or does it just bother you when I say it because we disagree?
Oh, no, I fucking love it. I wish you did more stuff like that.
Oh, well, there you go. I try to, dude. Keep an eye on my chat. I'm a pretty edgy dude.
I want you to be more edgy.
Okay.
We can both wear Kekistani shirts. Go out Chatelet.
Oh, gross.
I'm a little too old for that.
You want to do that? We go Chatelet on a
I don't know if I really want to associate with the Kekistani dudes, but you know, my kid is actually he's almost 7 years old. Maybe in like a couple years he'll be old enough for the Kekistani stuff. I'll get him a shirt. All right.
Have you had the big conversation with him yet about whether it's morally right to fuck him?
It's pretty hard for me to have big conversations about anything, my dude.
Oh boy. Well, you know, to wrap it up, I mean, look, we can argue back and forth about the data. You know, we can look at the data all we want. You know it, I know it, we all know it. The natural order must prevail. And I will bludgeon women back into the home, rhetorically speaking, with the Holy Bible if I have to, and I will, rhetorically. And so I'll leave it at that. I am a crusader for women and blacks and Jewish people. I want them to succeed and be happy. And that's my fight. I'm a social justice warrior.
Wow. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Anyone else like to wrap this up with some kind comments?
I just kind of like what I was trying to say to Theron is that whenever I talk about, you know, marriage and family and things like that, very often people get the sense that you're condemning the morality of people who choose to go against you. But what I would like to see is a culture where, you know, for university, for example, I think we all kind of generally agree that university is a good choice to make, but that doesn't mean someone who chooses not to go to university is a bad or immoral person. That's what I would like to see regarding marriage and the family, that we all recognize it as a universal good, but that we don't demonize people if their personal circumstances don't point toward that way. And I think there is something to be said about, you know, judge not lest you be judged. Just saying, Nick.
No, I will judge them. I will judge them until Christ himself sits at the right hand of the Father and judges them. No, I'm joking, but it's true. But it's true. I mean, it's a moral good too. And, you know, I don't judge people if they're in a personal circumstance where they can't, where they have to work. But I just think societally, it's just better for everybody. I don't know why everybody wants to live in rebellion against what they know is natural. That's why people get so defensive, because they know they're living in rebellion.
Nick, your sweater is lovely, but gotta stop hogging the cam. Anything from Steven, no bullshit, or Theron, anything burning in your gut that you gotta get out?
I'm just trying to. I just have one comment, or actually just one question. Or Theron can go first if you wanted to, or roaming.
No, go ahead. Go show about.
Oh, no, I was just curious, Lauren. I'm curious for you because it's always hard to pin down your beliefs because you like to dance the line so much. Do you think that trans people are unnatural degenerates? Yeah, is that a yes or no? I'm curious.
Do I think trans people are unnatural degenerates?
Are trans people unnatural degenerates?
I wouldn't say degenerate. I have met very many.
That's all I wanted to know.
No, I don't believe in the idea that you can change your gender. No.
Okay. That's all I wanted.
Well, I'll go ahead and chime in there on that awkward moment. First of all, I love the fact that Brightside Bob or Metokur's picture's been up for like the last half hour on the stream. That's pretty awesome. Those three gay guys are really rocking out. Thank you, everyone, for coming on, and thanks, Lauren, for inviting me. Last thing I'll say is Richard Spencer watches my videos. He tweets them, MAGA 2020, it's okay to be white.
What? Okay. All right. Well, this was the worst, guys. Thank you so much. This started out so civil. It had so much promise. Then
I haven't done it yet. Are you signing?
All right. You get 1 second. You get 1 minute. I just want to go drink wine and cry about not having children. You know.
I was gonna say, like, it's kind of funny to me because, like, which one of you ladies are? Which one of any of you are engaged?
That's
biological
savage.
Imperatives.
This is getting real personal. This stream is
real
getting
personal after grilling her on her unnatural degeneracy. Now it's personal.
I'm just curious because, like, I'm engaged. I'm soon to get married, and I'm probably gonna have children in the next 2 years. This degenerate that I am, you know, I guess that I'm just a living example of the fact that we all have some natural variation in us, that there's not like this platonic ideal of what people should be in every point in time until the end of time. That someone can have this variation here, but still satisfy all the other criteria of the natural order. I can't wait to be a mother, and I think I'll be a great mother. And fuck you, Nick.
Can I just a quick comment? I appreciate the conversation. I really do. I love all of you. Even Nick, Except for Mr. Metokur, I hate you. But and no
I
bullshit.
hate
But
you
Lauren,
too. I hate you too, midget.
Lauren, maybe,
Beautiful.
roaming even maybe. Yeah, I appreciate the conversation.
No,
I
and also,
enjoy
I
talking to you
also want to,
guys.
I also
And,
want to apologize. I also want to apologize. I also want to apologize to Roaming Millennial for going so hard and heated up with you, because I actually really like you and I think you're really cool. Even if I'm like frustrated about a few things, and I'm sorry about that.
No worries. It's spicy conversation. Anytime you guys want to talk again, I would be down. Thanks for having us, Lord.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren.
Yep.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful awkward video on my channel. This is just wow. And thank you to the chat for partaking. This had so much promise, but I hope it was entertaining. You came on this adventure with us, this complete and utter shit show of a live stream. Be sure to check out ContraPoints, Theron Meyer, Mr. Metokur, No Bullshit, Destiny, Roaming Millennial, and Nick Fuentes on their own channels. They all had their own unique thing to contribute to this that made it entertaining. As for the rest of you, I hope you all have a wonderful Saturday night. I'm probably never going to do this again, so savor this while you can. Cheers, everyone. Good night.